All right, spooks and spookettes. The new RSS feed is set up. Go ahead and go to featureofright.com/category-horror-comedy/feed/ and subscribe now. We will leave this link in the show notes page for you to do that. Go ahead and make the switch today, because by May 10th, we will be broadcasting exclusively from that feed, and we will be gone from this one forever. Thank you, spooks and spookettes. Good evening, spooks and spookettes. Count Rahun is here, and it is time for yet another feature of fright. Before we begin tonight's show, let's tend to the castle-keeping notes. If you like what we do here on Count Rahun's Feature of Fright and want to support the show, consider joining the ranks of the undead and become a patron through our Patreon. Join Nicole Johnson, Yancey Pearson, Morgan Mitchell, Lucas Lanius, Rhonda Gentry, Courtney O'Halloran, Tyler Laney, and Stephen Duke in spreading the tangled web and growing the show to new heights never before imagined. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to the heart of the matter, and hopefully you won't feel the need to drive a stake through it. Tonight we have yet another edition of Interviewed by a Vampire. I have to preface this episode by saying that I found the preparation for this one to be difficult. Of course, that is not meant to be a slight against our guest, but an enormous compliment. I had the honor to speak to perhaps the most versatile guest we have had on Count Rahun's Feature of Fright. So versatile that I feel it would only be adequate to dive right into the discussion and keep this introduction brief so that you may hear exactly what I mean. She is an actress, director, dancer, a real artist with a penchant for the macabre and sinister. Her personality is as big as her resume, and for the first time, she is being interviewed by a vampire. Here to talk about her gruesome pictures, Derailed, Bastard, and other obscenities, the most dangerous woman in Hollywood, Miss Tonya K. Tonya, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you, Count.
So, before we begin, tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how you got started in entertainment, and how did you get here on Count Rahun's Feature of Fright?
I'm from a small town in Michigan, and I started working young and professionally up in Detroit, which was the big city, big deal. From there, I got arrested. So that was a life changer. It it changed my path because my path was questionable, where I was headed. And I realized from that experience that I just need to perform. Like, I'm an artist, I'm not a loser. So then I moved to Chicago and never worked another day in my life. I just did musical theater, and I taught dance, and I toured doing live performance with the Rugrats. This is in the day with the Rugrats and Kenny Rogers and the Tap Dance Kid. And I'm a dancer.
Yes.
So I booked a lot of dance gigs. And then I moved to New York. And from there, I did concert dance, experimental theater. I was in Stomp, De La Guarda. I toured some more. I taught some more dance. I had the time of my life. Then I ended up on tour with Stomp for a while. And after that, I've traveled to all 50 states, all of them. It's awesome. I'm a bird. I enjoy the traveling. And I ended up in Los Angeles. And what is this? And it's not live theater oriented. And is film and television. So I learned a whole nother discipline and ended up dancing and doing stunts and acting. And now I'm directing.
Fantastic. I have to say, and I mean this as a compliment, going into this interview, doing my research and my homework, I sort of realized I had quite a challenge because you have done so much. And it's quite difficult to get started somewhere. So, but I think that's a great thing. So, because you have done so much, that gives us a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of horror films too.
Yes.
So important to this podcast count, as you know, the horror films are some of the funnest projects that I've worked on.
Of course. And that brings us to a film that you did last year, but it's soon to be released on video on demand called Derailed. So tell us, what is Derailed about? And tell us a little bit about your character, Gigi.
Well, Derailed it's a horror film. It's a creature horror film. If you like good monsters, there's a good monster in this.
I think it's safe to say everyone who listens to this show likes a good monster.
I like a good monster too. I grew up, my dad is born on Halloween.
Oh,
so
fun.
that affected my whole family's outlook on holidays. The biggest holiday, Halloween. We didn't go trick-or-treating. We dressed up and scared people at our own house. We had a coffin on our deck all year long, not just for Halloween, all year long. My dad's a carpenter. He would build the house legitimately into a haunted house for the community to come through. And I was a character every year scaring people. So that's really affected the way I feel about horror films. I think they're fun. I think it's familial. And I do have a certain type of preference that I have for horror films. Derailed is one of those really fun horror films because of the creature in it. It also straddles the line. It has a ghost story element to it. It has, it's set in the 1920s, so it's era specific. That's really fun in a horror film. And, I got to work with some really great people. Gigi, my character, who won Best Supporting Actress from the LA Actor Awards. Woo!
That's a great accomplishment.
Yeah, it's a big compliment. Mm-hmm. I was thrilled at that. Gigi is a troublemaker. I don't want to spoil anything because it is coming out August 6th.
Of course.
But Gigi is not what she seems to be. And that tends to be what I play. I've played a scream queen. Mm-hmm. I've played a couple scream queens, but I'm mostly the villain.
Being a villain is fun. I can attest to that. I could tell right off the bat we're kindred spirits, Tonya.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You had a coffin all year round. So do I. Albeit different purposes, but no one's counting.
We could have a slumber party.
We could have been bunkmates. I was thinking about that actually.
It'd work out.
It would have been perfect. So I know that you said that Halloween was special to you because it was definitely a big part of your upbringing with your family. But I was also curious, what makes the horror genre so appealing to you because of your preference in your filmmaking work?
Well, definitely my upbringing.
Yes.
There were monster scares all the time in my family. But also what I like as an actor in horror is that it honors the art of the makeup artist and the special effects artist. So it's practical. And as an actor, I've also acted in science fiction films, which are fun. Don't get me wrong. I love them. But it's a little more fun to interact with something that you can physically touch, feel, that somebody else spent hours building and creating instead of being against a green screen where you're like pretending to see what you are interacting with. Instead, with horror, as an actor, you actually get to touch and feel and interact with something that's really in front of you. And that's part of the fun of watching horror, is that I'm constantly watching the effects and going, how'd they do that? How good did it look? I'm not thinking, oh, that looks like ooh, that must have hurt. I can't. I've been behind the scenes. I look at the art of it, and it should be ridiculous and it should be fun and over the top as far as I'm concerned. Nobody really wants to think we're killing people. That's not why anybody does horror.
Well,
No, nobody's getting killed on set. Nobody is getting hurt on set. And I wouldn't like it if there was. Those Faces of Death films, not my style. Like I don't really want to hurt people. And none of us do. We're having a safe set. We're making fun of the atrocities that happen in the world. Mm-hmm. We're bringing some lightness to it. That's why I like horror.
That's a very beautiful way of looking at it. I'm going to steal that at some point.
Yeah.
You've given me some gems here, so I like. I really liked your answer, but also earlier you said something to the effect of you're not a loser, you're an artist. I think that'd be a great bumper sticker. So, but since you said it, I'll give you credit for that one. So if you need that, there it is.
Yeah, it took me getting arrested to realize that. But
So let me ask you, what for Derailed? What was the most challenging aspect of the film for you?
The most challenging aspect of Derailed for me was that we shot nights. So we shot in this really cool antique train museum. Mm-hmm. And these are truly beautiful old trains. So we were delicate with them. We paid attention. We didn't want to mess up the museum. Mm-hmm. And we were there after hours. So it just is how my schedule worked out. But I started filming at about 4 a.m. 4 a.m. each night, and that's hard. That's hard. You know, as much as you love it, everybody gets tired at a certain time.
Well, on the contrast for me, obviously I can't relate to the late night shoots being a vampire, but the late day shoots or late day appearances can be daunting.
Exactly, like 3 p.m. for you.
Yes.
How I feel at 3 a.m.
Oh, well, they have me going on the local radio next Monday at 10:30 a.m. Yes.
What am I going to do? And people say, oh, just sleep all day. For me, you know, night shoots, just sleep all day. It's not in my biorhythmic clock. I can't. So I just end up not sleeping. Probably you too. It's just.
Exactly. Same here. Same. But you have to do what you have to do, right?
You have to do what you have to do.
We can't use that as a bumper sticker, though. The producers, they told me that's already been said and done a long time ago.
It's been done, yeah.
Right. I'm so late on some of these patents. You know, if I had just seized the moment just right when I should have, I'd probably be a lot richer than what I actually am. But I digress. So, what do you want audiences to take from this film?
Well, one of my favorite things about the film is that it's set in the 1920s, 1930s, but 1920s era. Mm-hmm. And so I really want them to look at it and feel like they're transported to another time, because there was a lot of time spent in the set decoration and the costuming and hair to get it that way. And just imagining that horror happened in the 1920s as well. And I want them to take away from that. I want them to love the creature and to also appreciate the beauty of the 1920s that we captured.
Yes, always love the creature. And you are right. There's definitely some beautiful aspects about the 20s. Both the 1920s, 1820s, 1720s, however far back you want to go. So
you would know.
I would know. So if you don't mind, Tonya, I want to switch gears for just a moment because if unless I did my homework wrong, I understand that you are also in another horror film that's gotten some buzz here lately. The film I'm talking about is Verotica.
Yes.
And I was wondering if it was possible if you could maybe talk about your involvement in the picture and maybe what it was like working with Glenn Danzig.
Glenn Danzig, who is, if anybody doesn't know who Danzig is, but
Right.
Glenn Danzig is a heavy metal superstar. Like everyone knows Glenn Danzig. And he decided to direct his first feature film. He's directed a couple shorts. This is his first feature. And it's an anthology. It's non-traditional from the start. It was really great working with him. I was nervous because people kind of built it up like, oh, it's don't piss off Glenn, don't. I think they were treating him like they were scared of celebrity status or something. But the truth is, he's this really cool guy. He was super complimentary during my scene. He congratulated and complimented us, and it was a comfortable working environment. So I liked it. And
so you said Verotica, which is actually very interesting to me. Of course, it's also based off of his comic book series, if I'm not mistaken. It's anthology horror. So can you tell us anything about the role you played, or is that sort of, because the film has been released, has it not?
It has not. It's premiered in Chicago to very passionate reviews. It's also had its Los Angeles premiere. The cool thing about both of these premieres is Danzig is such a name that I've never been a part of a premiere before that filled 1,000-seat movie theater in Hollywood.
Wow. Yes.
It was like the who's who of horror and metal and filmmaking. Everybody was there. Everyone was there. The after party was so fun. And so I've never been a part of a premiere like that before. And they're getting very passionate reviews. My character is, everything that happens is like a frame from the comic book. So if you want to know what the movie is exactly about,
just
check out the comic
books. I see.
Yeah. Like the comic books, I wasn't part of production, but the comic books, to my belief, they served as the storyboard. He was matching frames from the comic books, which is cool. And that was what his vision was. And that's what he wanted to do and see through.
So you may have hinted at it earlier, but because you do so much in the art world, acting, directing, dancing, what label, and I know everyone hates labels, but just humor me for a second. What term best describes you, in your own opinion? Independent filmmaker or independent artist?
Independent artist. I like to call myself a performing artist, but now that I've added directing to that, I just say actor-director.
I see.
Who started out as a professional dancer.
Or let me add a tertiary term, independent smorgasbord.
Exactly.
I can see that in the lower 2/3. Tonya K, independent smorgasbord.
Yeah.
You could get some real headway with that. Nobody else has that kind of marketing. So, really quick, I want to talk a little bit about some of your non-horror projects, which are every bit as fascinating as your horror projects. But one in particular, and trust me, there's method to the madness with your count. I was hoping we could talk briefly about, I hope I got the title right, Tonya K's Pole and Pinup Show, or is it Pinup and Pole Show?
Close. Tonya K's Pinup Pole Show.
Pinup Pole Show. There's no article in between. It's just
there's
Pinup
no
Pole. Okay.
Close. Pinup Pole Show. The alliteration.
So this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is more of a burlesque show?
It has burlesque in it. Okay. It has national champion pole dancers, so aerial sports. We have song and dance and musical comedy and sketch comedy. And it starts with a classic car show photographers are out there. My girls are modeling out there. We have live music out there at the car lot. When I say out there, I mean the car lot.
Mm-hmm.
And we generally have also a art show on the walls, a pinup art show, and dinner and drinks. And now I have just initiated a grindhouse film screening that happens before the show too. So it's an evening of entertainment. I'd actually call it like a mini festival where the main event is a 75-minute stage show featuring me and my girls.
It sounds like a very interesting, all-encompassing variety show in a lot of ways. So is this primarily in the LA area, or do you have plans to maybe expand it to make it sort of a nationwide touring kind of show?
Absolutely. I would love to tour it, but right now it's a Los Angeles-based show.
Yes.
We've done other people's shows, so I love it when other car shows bring us in because we're so in line with their target audience. So they can bring in my cars, and they can also just bring in my girls, and we can model or we can entertain on the stage. We also do private parties. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually, for brand expansion, you're kind of asking about brand expansion. For brand expansion, right now, I'm directing a television series proof of concept. Mm-hmm. So we have, very soon we'll have 4 episodes, and it's the behind the scenes of my photo shoots. I produce photo shoots with the women, and I put them, they get published in magazines and so on. So isn't it fun to see what happens behind the scenes? And that's what the series is about.
Fascinating.
So I would love to get my girls on television with a series because they're such big personalities. Mm-hmm. They're the women of the classic car world. Me too. We are the women of the classic car world. We're unashamed. We're not shy. Mm-hmm. And we're good at everything. So you want us to sing? We're singers. You want us to up in the air and the rafters of the ceiling? My girls do that. Burlesque it? Yes. Professional dance? Yes. Do I have a classic car? Yes, I do. And my friends all do too.
And I've seen pictures of your car. It's quite impressive. It's a 65 Buick, yes?
Riviera, yeah. Well, and it's bright purple, the best color.
Yes, it is. It's quite something. Wonder if you can modify that into a coffin car. I mean, I could be like your little sidecar companion.
I do have friends that have a car club called the Coffin Cartel.
Oh boy!
And they have legitimately old, vintage hearses and ambulances. And little did I know until recently, I was hanging out at a car show, the All GM car show with one of my friends. And he told me that ambulances and hearses used to be the same thing. Mm-hmm. They used to use the same automobile for both services until they realized there's a conflict of interest here. Ambulances save people and hearses make money when the people are dead. So we can't have that overlap.
I remember those days. Yeah, it was quite hard to get used to once they started separating the two. Because I will say, you are right, there is sort of a conflict of interest there, but at the very least, it was so much more convenient to call one person instead of 2. So
I imagine, like if you die on your way to the hospital.
Well, I also had, by hookups in terms of, if I needed to get some blood somewhere else, there was only one guy you had to call, but now it's...
Oh, yeah.
So it was a little hard to get around all of that. So there's more red tape, no pun intended. So, so it's interesting. We're talking about your show here. Maybe you being a horror aficionado, maybe you've noticed this as well as I. There always seems to have been an interesting relationship between the horror genre and, shall we say, more risque art forms like burlesque and such as that. And I was wondering if maybe coming from both of those worlds, in a way, if you had any insight on that as to why that is.
Yes, I actually do.
Okay.
This is cool too. You know how they call we think of a whole genre of film as being grindhouse, and horror fits into the grindhouse genre. It's just a catch-all for a whole bunch of exploitation type films. They're exploiting violence, they're exploiting sex, they're exploiting.
Mm-hmm.
So grindhouse films, this is neat. Burlesque ruled Broadway in the 30s, and then movies started.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody came out to Hollywood, and people on Broadway, there were laws made that it was too risque. That New York actually outlawed the word burlesque. Like, you couldn't call anything burlesque. That doesn't change it. They put restrictions on what women could do with their bodies while they were burlesquing. They said they couldn't shake it. So that's how showgirl performance turned out. Showgirls, if you go to Vegas, they don't shake it. They just parade around. So it's very interesting to see how outlawing burlesque changed art and changed dance. And the movies changed Broadway. So now everybody's going to the movie theater instead of the theater to see shows. And what happened was burlesque lost its popularity while movies were coming up. And those old burlesque houses started, showing exploitation films, like crappy, just horrific films. And then they put a dancing girl on in between it. So the dancing women they do bump and grind. So the house, the theater, became known as the Bump and Grind House, or shortened to the Grind House. And the movies that were shown in that theater were known as grindhouse films because they were shown at the Bump and Grind House. So that's how all the exploitation got put together originally. Horror got put in there. Exploitation of every kind. The Blob, I don't know, every weird science fiction, low budget film that exploited something, that includes horror. So they were shown side by side. It'd be a burlesque dancer and then a horror film in the grindhouse.
That's actually very fascinating. I had no idea.
Pretty cool, right?
It makes sense now that you put it that way. But wow, you really do learn something new every day. How did I miss that? I've been around a long time. You would have thunk that I would have I don't know. You know what I mean. I would have ran into that factoid somewhere, but I have you to thank for that. So
you're welcome.
All right. So, really quick, aside from the already fascinating things that we've discussed this evening, are there any other horror-related projects that you've got coming out soon that you'd like to talk about?
Girl on the Third Floor is a really wonderful feature film debut from director Travis Stevens. And it's been cleaning up at festivals. It's an art film. My role is not big in that, but it's cool. So you'll see me as the nymph, and I come in at a pivotal time in the story, and I'm painted fully gold, which was a funny thing. I'll tell you that. And so that one's coming out soon. I don't have the exact date on it, but see that one as well.
Yes, of course.
Derailed, of course. And if you're into watching video on demand, I would definitely recommend seeing Puppet Master 11. I played the villain in Puppet Master 11 by Full Moon Features, and Amityville Terror. I'm the villain in that. And Bastard. And Bastard is one of those horror films done good. It's like an indie film done good. We actually got theatrical release at After Dark Film Festival, and Fox Horror handled our local domestic distribution digitally. So it got a lot of hype. And what's so cool about Bastard is that it was a co-directing team, and they had never directed a feature film before.
Oh, wow.
So it's truly one of those indie films that did good, like got theatrical release.
Fascinating.
The only horror film I've ever done that gives me residuals.
Well, I guess that one's not such a bastard after all.
Not a bastard. And I play the villain. I won Best Villain from the Horror Society for my role in Bastard, and I was the only female nominee. So, speaking from a villain to a villain.
Yes.
It's always kind of irked me how there's a term for the bad guy. But when you say bad girl, it means something completely different. Bad guy is the villain, but bad girl means she likes to drink and party. That's not a villain. Bad girl isn't the villain. So I call myself the bad guy. I'm the bad guy. But I would like to, winning Best Villain, I play a lot of villains. There's room for more women to be seen as villainous and terrifying as well. And those are the fun parts to play. We don't always want to scream our head off as we're getting killed. Well,
I can vouch for you. There have been a lot of terrifying women in my life, so... in more ways than one. But that's great. I'm glad. I'm glad Bastard has done well, and that you received some good accolades from that. And I had mentioned I had meant to bring that up. So you said it had distribution. So is it? It is. You can find that in DVD stores and video on demand and.
Yeah, it had a limited theatrical run, so you could go see Bastard in the movie theaters, and now it's everywhere digitally. I would say I don't rent it that often, but it's probably on iTunes and Amazon and Google Play, and you name all the places that you rent. One might rent
Perfect.
A movie, video on demand. Yeah.
Well, I will be sure to try to get a peek at that, and also in addition to that. Where can we follow you for updates of what you're working on, or if there's any more news about the like Derailed or Bastard or any of the films that have been out there for a little bit, but perhaps might be receiving some future accolades or might have more reviews of things of that nature?
Well, you can always check out Name. Tonyakay, Tonya K, on IMDb. And that's where you can see a really comprehensive list of everything I've ever done.
It's a lot, Spooks and Spookettes.
It's comprehensive. That's the best place to see what I've done. And you can pick out I want to see this. It looks like a horror film. I'm going to find it on Amazon. I'm going to find it on iTunes, wherever you look for films. But also you can go to my website, tonyakay.com. That's my acting and directing website. My burlesque and my dance and stunt website is themostdangerouswomaninhollywood.com. Totally different website, split it up. And I'm all over social media, and I'm generally really available to talk publicly in the comments or on posts or whatever. I'm available to talk publicly on social media. So Instagram, I'm Pure Renegade. Twitter, I'm Tonya K. And on Facebook, you can search my name, Tonya K, or you can do that / Brutally Elegant.
Fascinating. All right. And I will be sure to have all of that in the show notes page for this episode whenever we publish it. But before you go, Tonya, I do this periodically with my guests. I want to do this with you because I've really enjoyed our discussion this evening, and I'm going to try to keep it going for as long as humanly possible. No pun intended. What I have here is just a quick lightning round it's about, I think, 5 or 6 questions, and they're for the most part horror related. So we're going to give it a go. All right.
Okay.
All right. Favorite non-horror film?
The Dark Crystal.
Oh, really? So I take it you're excited about the Netflix prequel, or is it already out?
They better do a good job with it. They better.
It feels like nowadays Hollywood has really disappointed the fans a lot.
Yeah.
All right, duly noted. Okay, favorite horror film?
I love Death Note. I loved it. I love the monster. I love the premise. I wasn't a fan of what came before, so I was innocent when I watched it. So there was no disappointing me. I was just thrilled. I loved it.
I felt the same way. I didn't really know anything about the anime or the manga, so I had just watched the film for the first time, and I really liked it. And then I happened to mention to anime fans, and I was almost chased out of town with pitchforks and torches. So,
I know. I know.
Who'd have thunk it?
Who'd have thunk it?
Hey, I said that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
good,
exactly right.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Okay. Do you have a dream role? Or maybe not a specific role, but maybe a kind of character that you'd like to play that you haven't had a chance to play yet?
Oh, well, I've never done a romantic comedy, and I think that would be a great challenge. Something like, remember La La Land? Something musical,
yes.
Something dancey where I can really dance. That'd be fun.
Okay.
A romantic comedy.
What is the scariest role you've played?
Scariest role.
The
scariest role I've ever played was in Bastard, for sure.
Okay.
The villain, because she's just out of her mind. I got a review that said I do batshit crazy really well. It's like, thank you. I felt like that.
I was going to say, if with a film title like Bastard, you kind of have to play. You have to play crazy. So
it's crazy.
Right.
She's crazy. By the end, she's full on crazy. But she's a true villain. She goes from being a normal person that you don't expect to being your worst nightmare, and that's a true villain.
Yes. All right. In your opinion, what do you think is the sexiest horror film ever made? My eyebrows furrowed a little bit too.
You know what? You should watch. Have you watched Evil Bong 666?
No, I have not.
There's sexy Satan in that, played by the Don. And it's pretty sexy. It's one of my favorite films. Sexy!
All right, I'll have to check it out.
He takes everybody to sexy hell. And it's sexy. It's real sexy.
Isn't this the most thought-provoking line of questioning you've ever had?
Now that you mention it.
All right. Last question. This is probably the most important question of the interview. What is the likelihood of a buddy cop film happening starring you and Count Drahun?
Oh, I heard that we just got financing for it.
Fantastic. I'm packing my coffin. I'm on my way to LA right now.
Thank you. It's going to be an honor.
It's good. And the pleasure is all mine. It's going to be fantastic. It'll be one for the ages. Well, Tonya, it has been such a pleasure to have you on this evening. Thank you so much for coming on to Count Drahun's Feature of Fright. And keep in mind, you have an open invitation anytime you'd like to come back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Count. Thank you.
And on that note, that is all the time we have, Spooks and Spookettes. But be sure to join me next time for yet another Feature of Fright. But until then, as far as things go, when things go bump in the night,
there are such things.
Want to help the show grow? Well, you can start by leaving us a review on iTunes. Go to your iTunes account, click on Podcasts, type in Count Drahun's Feature of Fright. Once you hit the main page, go to Ratings and Reviews, and click Write a Review. The more reviews we get, the higher we move up in the iTunes rankings, and the closer we get to world domination. Thank you, Spooks and Spookettes.
Hello, Internet Land. This is Austin Duke from Camcorder TV and 4077 Productions. Do you like music? Do you like the songs you hear on the radio but wish you could hear more like them? Well, then check out our new podcast, Album Cuts, where I take a look at entire musical albums and go through every single song, not just the singles, and see what you're missing out on if you only listen to the radio. Again, that is Album Cuts from Camcorder TV and 4077 Productions.